Hello and welcome to Lost in Chronologically Lost, where in these episodes we finally continue the totally normal grounded drama that for some reason just kind of disappeared 80 episodes ago.
Right. I mentioned that this was, these final few episodes, they'd be like fanfic writing, and I think you can agree with
Yeah,
that.
but it's not a bad fanfic. I mean, if we want to get right into it, the thing I maybe expected was okay. I expected something along. I didn't expect specifically this, but the tone of what I expected is that Locke meets Jack. Jack's like, "Hey, I'm a spinal surgeon," and then it just works out. And instead, we get this whole character arc of Locke struggling with whether or not he wants to do it. And I think the thing that kind of hit me in like the first 10 minutes of this episode is just this might be the good timeline, but these characters still have problems. Like, we are back to Kate in handcuffs and Jin and Sun's relationship being terrible, and I guess we probably
Well,
are...
I think Jin and Sun have a completely different kind of relationship here.
I'm not saying these problems don't get solved, but, we're getting drama. It's not just totally sweet, and, mysteriously no appearances of Michael. Wonder why.
Yeah, well, I mean...
Yeah, I mean,
you
you can't do a Michael plotline without Walt, and you can't do a Walt plotline.
Yeah, no, there's no way they're getting... how old would he... He would have been... If he was 12 originally, then I think he was... Yeah, he would have been 18. So not a good look to try and get an 18-year-old to play a 12-year-old. So we're just going to ignore him.
Yeah.
But it's also, it is like fan fiction-y, because it's like, okay, what if the plane never landed story? It's like, oh, but then Desmond wouldn't be involved. So you know what? Desmond's just on the plane now.
Yeah,
and,
there's a lot of... I mean, because on the plane, the part of this that's on the plane, it just feels like this is just what would have happened if the plane didn't crash. And then it's slowly like, wait, this timeline is very, very different, and I'm not sure if I can really expect why it would be different. I mean, there's definitely... I mean, for one thing, something seems to have maybe sunk the island, or maybe it always sank from the nuke. Like... No, because in the original timeline, the nuke did happen because that's why people couldn't give birth. So then did something else happen in this timeline that then just sunk the island? Or, like, maybe the foot just ended up underwater, but the island is still there, but... It's like, because some changes make sense. Like, maybe in this timeline, the Dharma Initiative just ended, and so Ethan is just a normal doctor. But then some divergences are like, what made Sawyer's life go differently? We're like, maybe, Jacob never showed up to him. I don't know. I can see some of these things... I guess my thing is, I think that you could probably explain all of this, but I don't think I'm going to get an explanation.
Well, when it comes to Sawyer, I think there's an explanation for Sawyer, which is that, without Jacob, what probably happened was that scene where he's writing the letter plate, where he begins to write it and his pen runs out, and then his uncle says, don't finish that letter, it's not going to do you any good. And then he probably just doesn't finish it without Jacob giving him that little push.
Yeah, or,
So then when he got to the point in his life where he could be, a cop or a criminal, he doesn't have that letter to hang on to, and is like, fine, I'll go cop route.
Didn't Jacob meet Sawyer earlier in the time... No, it was later in the timeline than the 70s arc, right?
It was in 75.
It was during the time skip of the 70s arc. Wait, so then
yes.
it was before the nuke went off.
Right.
Look, I don't think I should worry about this because I don't know what would cause all of these divergences. I don't... Like, Locke is still paralyzed, but is still with Helen. I think that I just shouldn't worry about it. I don't think that I have to understand the exact series of events that led to... like, why Locke's life is different so much as I think that maybe in this timeline things went a little better for him, so he didn't screw up his relationship with Helen, but he was still you know, he was still just, fate is real, so he was still always fated to end up in a wheelchair.
Right, and there's, it's what I was also saying is that it's very fan fiction-y in the sense that it's like, okay, so the plane never landed, but then the fan fiction writer goes, oh, but then Desmond wouldn't be in the plot, so Desmond's just on the plane, and all the season 4 characters, what, let's just weave them in right now, like let's.
See, I feel like most of the ways they're woven in kind of make sense. Like, there's nothing implausible. Like Daniel makes sense.
It is pretty random that Miles is just Sawyer's partner.
Okay, I can see Miles as like. I can see Miles as a sort of like. How do I put it? I think that he is also someone who, like Sawyer, was in a position to make that choice between being, a cop or a criminal.
Right, and something else I should say is that, the intro to this episode, it's actually the intro but inverted. It's black on white instead of white on black.
Oh, yeah.
And it ends the same way too. And what was really interesting is in the original version, when you watch this originally, when Juliet hits the bomb and it cuts to black, it doesn't. It cuts to white. It actually cuts to the white, to the black on white.
Huh.
And then season 6 opens with the whole scene of Jack on the plane, and then it has the inverted opening.
They're pretending it's a flashback, and then it's like, no, this is different.
Yeah. So that's just interesting.
Alright, so we probably should stop worrying about the timeline and just actually go through what happened here.
Right.
So we start.
It begins the same way that the plane crash.
Yeah, and
sort of
began. My main thing I wondered during this part is Jack gonna suddenly is a version of the Jack from right before the nuke actually going to get his mind sent to this? Is he going to know somehow? And just the answer is no, but characters will get these vague feelings of something, but no one knows.
Yeah, so they get the turbulence and then no crash. It just is fine.
Yep.
And you even see Rose just immediately saying, you can let go now.
Yeah.
It says he's white knuckling the armrest.
Yep. And then he kind of goes to the bathroom and notices a scar on his neck. I'm not really sure what the deal with that is, and I'm not sure if that's something I would just totally know if I had just seen season 5.
You should know what it is, but I'm not going to tell you if you don't remember.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I don't... You know what? That is not nice of you. Anyway, Desmond is just
sitting there. It'll all come around. I'll tell you eventually.
Okay. Well, Desmond's sitting there, and they're just friendly, and they don't... Actually, I was gonna say, shouldn't they... While I was watching the scene, I was like, oh, I think Jack knows him from somewhere because the stadium they met, and I don't think that happened in this timeline.
Nope, because, Desmond seems to be living a completely different life.
Yeah, I mean, Desmond... I mean, it would have to be very different because... I think we can take a lot of the changes as, in the original timeline, some things only happened the way they did because the island was using fate to make them go that way. A lot of things in Desmond's life went the way they did because the island was conspiring to get him to, to the island because his fate was to be there, to be in the room and press the button for 3 years. And so without that influence, he just, ends up working for Widmore and never having met Penny. And it's funny, when I first saw those parts, I was kind of trying to piece it together, oh, maybe, when he was trying to earn Widmore's approval for the sake of Penny, he actually got it, and it's no, he just never met her, just ended up working for him for some other reason.
Also, it is fun that, Desmond is showing up here because, Desmond always said, see you in another life.
Yeah.
And now he's actually seeing them in another life. It all comes around.
They got him. But then anyway, no, Jack knows him from somewhere because, little things are leaking into their timeline. And then we get this dramatic zoom thing and we see that the foot is underwater.
Yeah.
See, is this the foot that Jacob lives under? Or is this the other foot?
It's the foot.
Okay, so it's not the other foot that was missing.
No.
But okay, I don't know how the island ended up underwater. I'm not sure if I will know. Okay.
So yeah, then Jack and Kate, they bump into each other on the plane because of course.
Yeah, and I think Jack...
And, she steals his pen because it is fun to see, like, what Kate would have done,
it's fun
if
that,
she
like,
didn't
she
get saved by the island.
not give up. She was still going to find a way to run. I mean, she pulled it off. What we see Kate do is impressive.
Yeah.
Anyway, then, Arst is trying to make Hurley do a bit from a commercial. Arst is just... They milk the hell out of him in these episodes.
I mean, he was on that flight, so...
And, Hurley says...
And in this world, Hurley is lucky.
Yeah.
Nah, not unlucky. So,
really?
I love that for him.
So none of the unlucky stuff happened?
Well, like he said, he's like, I'm the luckiest guy alive. Nothing bad ever happens to me.
So like, someone didn't jump off the building when he was in that meeting with his accountant. Then for whatever reason, he went to Australia. It wasn't to go.
He said it was to open up the Australian branch of the chicken restaurant.
It wasn't to go meet the guy who knew about the numbers, his wife.
No, yeah, that's what the whole thing with Arts was about. Is that he did an Australian commercial.
Yeah. Well, that's good for him. And so his house never caught fire. He didn't get arrested. Wow. The scale of differences continues to astound me.
Yeah. Then we see Sun and Jin, and he does the whole button up your shirt.
Season 1 Jin is back.
Well, not completely. We'll see that later.
I mean, I feel like he's the same person. I just feel like I feel like he always could have gone this way. He never needed to be it was always circumstance that made him be the way he was. Not to excuse his behavior so much as I always think he had the potential to grow this quickly.
Yeah, and then we see Boone and Locke talking, and in this timeline, Boone wasn't able to get Shannon. This is actually just because they couldn't get the actress.
Oh.
They didn't plan on having Shannon here, but yeah.
Yeah, see, I was hoping that they work in Shannon and do the Shannon Saeed romance again. Screw Nadia.
Yeah, they just couldn't get the actress.
That is a shame. Even
and Locke lies about going on a walkabout.
In the end, Shannon still just doesn't get the material she deserves. Doesn't get the character development she deserves.
Right. And Locke tells the whole thing about going on a walkabout that he didn't go on.
Yep.
And of course we have Boone saying, "Oh, this thing goes down. I'm sticking with you."
So I don't think it looks like we're really getting a Boone plot line in this thing. It's just it feels like that might have been it for him.
Boone was still doing Vampire Diaries at the time. Yeah. He had another show he was full time on.
I feel like maybe he'll get another appearance, but we're not getting a Boone plot. And you know what? Boone's life is fine.
Yeah, see, this is another thing where he was coming back if you knew the actors, because when the season 6 opening shot happens with Kate in the tree and everything, the actor's name pops up as a main character again, just as a little, nod, right? So anyway, then they page for a doctor because turns out Charlie is not breathing.
Yeah, and it's nice to just see Jack has gone through so much shit. I just like getting moments for Jack where it's we need a doctor. Here, he's a doctor, and he will do the job properly. He solves
and also
problems.
we have to get the Middle Eastern guy to break open the door on the plane.
Anyway, yes, it's funny that.
They needed to work Saeed into this somehow.
Yeah. Anyway, then, Charlie is not overdosing, choking.
Yeah, tried to swallow the heroin packet, and, the pen in Jack's jacket is gone, but he's able to just get the packet out anyways.
Yep.
So, another difference, instead of trying to hide it in the toilet, he hides it just in himself.
Yep. And he was willing to die, I think. And, dick thing to say that to the guy who saved your life. Fuck you, I was supposed to die. But anyway,
and then we get a montage of everyone just landing at LAX.
Yep.
And in some versions of it, it's kind of happy, and in other versions, it's you see Locke being carried out in the wheelchair and everything, and Kate being escorted by the marshal, and Charlie getting taken in by the cops, and it's
worth noting, canonically, this is still the version of Charlie that I hate.
You can see they're kind of speeding through character development in these episodes.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, again, it's fan fiction-y, but I don't think any of it is hard to believe. It's like, this is just as best as it could reasonably go for a lot of them.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we see Jack. He sees that Locke is in a wheelchair. And, Desmond helped Claire get her bag. And he offers to give her a ride, and she declines. She
should have taken it.
She should. On the one hand, she should have taken it, but on the other hand, it's kind of fate that she didn't take it.
Yeah, that's true. And
he also was like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure your baby's a boy." Just to throw that in there.
Yeah, we're gonna do all the little moments like that we can.
Yeah, and did you recognize Desmond's driver?
Yeah, he's the guy who was on the. He was that radio operator. I think he was on the boat.
Yeah, he was the radio operator on the boat who went crazy and died.
George. Anyway, yeah, George is like, "Hey, Desmond, you want to go see a prostitute?"
Yeah. Well, hey, no, this is the upper class. This is the rich businessmen. They're escorts, okay? And then Jack gets paged because it turns out they lost the coffin.
Yeah. And it's like, its timeline is different. They just... I'm not even sure we're ever going to see that coffin again.
Right. And then, Kate goes to the bathroom to try and pick her cuffs, but she can't, so she
just tackles him.
she's still able to get it. She just tackles him, but it's like, oh, he just tried to attack me. I have to get out of here. And just leaves and covers up her cuffs with a jacket. And
then meanwhile...
I do have to... one thing I will say is, I don't know if this says something horrible about me, but when I see someone in a TV show, do something like escaping in all the various ways that Kate escapes, or something like, I don't know if anybody has seen the episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine titled "The Box," where the killer in that episode was just so smart. I kind of just want to see them get away with it. It feels like if you put in that much effort, I want you to get away with it.
Yeah, no, it's cool to see people, be competent, do the smart things. You want to see them succeed. Anyway, meanwhile, Jack is calling his mom, saying, "What are we gonna do? Don't have the coffin."
Yeah, because the funeral is in 2 hours.
And then Locke is there, and he's just like, "Yeah, one of my bags."
Well, he says they didn't lose your father; they just lost his body, which is
Jack,
like.
I like that Jack just completely one-ups him. Like, yeah, they lost my dad.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, he wasn't even trying to get one of, Locke was like, "Oh, what are you here for?" They just lost one of my bags. Like, whatever.
But yeah, then Locke, gets spiritual about it. And, you can do the funeral without him there. I don't think...
But they did. They canceled the funeral, so...
Anyway, Jack's like, "Hey, I'm a spinal surgeon. What's the deal with your back?" And, if in case it's not irreversible, Jack gives him his card. Which, again, this is where, if we were going full fan fiction, we would not get the arc we do of Locke struggling with whether or not he wants to.
Well, also, Jack saying nothing is irreversible, which is what Kate said to Jack at the end of the final episode.
Yeah.
So he gives him his business card, and then
we get Kate getting on the elevator. Sawyer's there. He notices the cuffs and is just like, "Sure, I'll help you." Which is weird.
And it's even funnier once we find out that Sawyer is a cop.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that until now. He's got his criminal tendencies. He's not getting involved.
Yeah, but you know what? Yeah, he's off the clock right now. Yeah. He's still on vacation time.
Yeah, so he just helps her get off without being noticed. And meanwhile, Jin is in trouble because he can't speak to the customs officer.
And he didn't declare the $25,000.
Yeah, so at first I thought this was supposed to be Sun's, wasn't Sun taking money or something to escape, and then she decided not to. And then no, this is money that Sun's dad put in, that was supposed to be part, a bribe alongside with the watch.
Right, and here, and so this is also kind of a confusing scene because Sun doesn't speak English, and it's meant to show that in this timeline she doesn't know English.
I thought.
But it's kind of weird because in season 1 she was so adamant to pretend that she didn't know.
I thought that she was just pretending.
No, she legitimately doesn't know. And also, Sun is called Miss Peg here, not Miss Kwan.
So
they're not
I did not even really pick this up while watching much. They're not married. What? So, how different is the timeline? Are they in a relationship but not married? Or
Well, clearly they're in a relationship based on what
but
happens.
then if they're not, if they never got married, did they like never like? I think the issues they had never got as extreme. Did she never cheat on him? Is she not? I don't even know.
I don't think... I think the issues never got as extreme, and I think what happened here is a situation where instead of meeting Sun and then working for Mr. Pike, I think he was working for Mr. Pike and then met Sun.
Kind of,
and that's kind of what happened.
Kind of like with Desmond.
This to be fair, this is all speculation. There's no answers about this. I'm just guessing.
There's some things where they're different, but I can just kind of roll with it and believe it. And then there's some things where they're so different, and I'm like, I kind of want to see what happened in this version.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, then we get Kate escaping the airport, and she hijacks the cab that just so happens to have Claire in it.
She's like, points the gun. Well, we're skipping a few details here. We get this whole thing of Neil being a bitch at her because it's like there's a line, and
right.
And Hurley is on the phone,
Frogurt.
and she Frogurt. And then she...
Oh, they drive over Art's...
Yeah, and so... and I just love, like, this is the lady who was raising your son, Claire.
No, the girl who was raising her son had 4 more seasons of character development.
But, yeah, also, Arst gives them an, I'm walking here. I did that so terribly.
It's clearly an ironic one from himself, like...
Yeah, but it's just like he's a dork.
Yeah. So eventually at a red light, the cab driver just bolts. Yep. And then Kate drives a bit and eventually just kicks Claire out.
Yep. And it's like, takes her stuff, no suitcase. And
I like Claire. Can I at least get my suitcase?
Abandon a
pregnant
now. Lady on the side of the road without her anything. And then Kate just goes up to a mechanic and is like, help me. And he's like,
This is like the world's most helpful mechanic, by the way.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, you're doing this wrong. This is one of, like...
Gets held up at gunpoint and is still trying to help, like, come on.
This is one of those things where, like, I feel like if this was the full story, that mechanic could be, a fun, interesting character, but then it's like, with where we are at the story, with the places we need to get to, we have no time to care about him, but then, for somebody we don't have time for, he has an odd amount of personality.
Right, yeah, so she gets the cuffs off, and she sees a picture of Claire... being pregnant, she feels guilty because that's what happens.
Meanwhile, we have Desmond just works for Widmore, which I don't know if we're actually gonna get like Desmond from the other timeline showing up in this mind, because we got stuff that was kind of like I kept thinking it was about to happen and it didn't, so I don't know like how things sync up. But like I just think it would be really funny if we get, Desmond from the other timeline being like, what the fuck? I work for you, Widmore? Fuck you.
Yeah, and so he is still married to Eloise, who is now Eloise Widmore.
Yeah, I think that in this timeline, Widmore and Eloise, they were just like...
He still cheated, though. He still has Penny with a different woman. I think
they're just like, you know what? Island's gone. Let's just be rich people.
Yeah, and they're so rich it doesn't matter. And he's like, oh, I need you to get Charlie to perform with my son. And then also he shares the scotch and says, anything's worth you, Desmond, which is just... On the one hand, I like to see it, but on the other hand, I hate to see it.
They acknowledge, he has everything he wanted, the approval of Widmore in this timeline.
But he doesn't have Penny.
Which is, great. Everyone else is mostly just, here's the good timeline, but if you wanted to do a plot line of, interacting between the two timelines, great thing to do. This is the person who gets everything they wanted but don't have love, And anyway, So... we get that Kate just drives back to Claire,
up Claire,
and she's like, so, where were you going? And I'm just like, this is, okay.
They're friends from another life. They're co-parents from another life.
Vague memories from the other life inserting themselves into their minds. They're making them care a bit more about each other. But I still
also, Claire's desperate. Come on.
Terrible idea by Claire.
Yeah, but she's desperate. I
would knock on someone's door and ask for help.
She's it looked to be a pretty bad part of town.
Okay, I guess.
It's the part of town where you get a mechanic who helps you get your cuffs off. Very few people are going to do anything bad to a pregnant lady.
I know
pregnant women's number one cause of death is murder, by the way.
Okay, I think that if you knock on someone's door and you're pregnant and in distress, that makes someone more inclined to help you. I'm not saying there's no risk if you just run into a bad person.
Okay. Anyway, then we get a scene that I actually really love, which is it seems like Locke is having the same just terrible life that he always had, where he gets home,
falls onto the ground out of his wheelchair.
Yeah.
Sprinkler sprays.
The sprinklers go off, but then Helen runs out. It's like,
and
he still has Helen.
Look, this is another one where I want to know why the timeline is like what it is, but I feel like we're at least getting enough. We're seeing interesting things.
And I always love to see Katie Seagal.
Although there is, I think it's later, but there's a moment where they're talking about wedding, and she says, "Invite your dad." Are they chill with his dad in this timeline, or does she,
it appears they are chill with his dad in this timeline?
Or do they just not know what he's like?
It appears
if that's the case, what got him in the wheelchair? Like, okay, you know what? Take it back. I want to know what led to this. I do.
You will find out what happened. Why he's in the wheelchair in this timeline.
Especially because some things I want to know, but I get that they're not that important to the story. This is important to the story.
It is important, and you'll find out.
Can't wait. Anyway, Saeed brings flowers to Nadia, and he already...
But Nadia's married to his brother.
So in this timeline, another just weird thing, not even the brother thing, the fact that he already found her years ago, he didn't have this whole long journey, he just found her. But
yeah, he's just working as a translator apparently. So
pushed her. And we find out later, he pushed her towards his brother because he was too guilty to want to be with her.
Which I get.
I totally get.
That's a fair arc for Saeed.
Which would totally open us up to then he accepts that, he moves on, but he gets a romance with Shannon. Totally would have been great.
Yeah, and it's obvious, it's clear that Nadia is still in love with Saeed, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, then Claire shows up to the people who were supposed to be adopting her baby.
I'm very surprised that they were real. I thought this.
Were they real in the original timeline? I don't know.
Not. I mean, maybe the what do you think the psychic told her in this timeline? Maybe there was no psychic, and she just did this normally.
Yeah, exactly. It's... Anyway, and then Claire starts feeling contractions, which is... Oh no, here we go.
Yep.
And
so Kate gets her
they get to the hospital, and Ethan is a doctor. He's not going by Ethan Ron. He's going by Ethan Goodwin.
Goodspeed.
Or Ethan...
Horace
Goodspeed, sorry.
Whatever, we don't know what exactly happened to Dharma or why the island sank, but Horace Goodspeed just came back to the rest of the world and raised his son, and his son became a doctor. And we get the...
And he even has the thing of saying, I don't want to have to stick you with needles if I don't have to. It's
irony.
And then they have a tension where it's oh my god, the baby died, but no, it just moved around, it's fine.
Yep. And look, Claire, have the American citizen baby.
Oh yeah, I mean... I don't know. To be honest, if I had the choice between living in America or Australia, I'd probably pick Australia.
You don't have to live in America. You can have... If you have the baby there... and then move back to Australia, your baby can still be an Australian citizen, but if they ever... It's just another option. They're an American citizen, they don't have to worry about immigration laws or anything. It's just purely convenience.
I guess so.
Literally just, you lose nothing, I think.
I mean, you'd get quite the hospital bill. That's losing something.
You got me there. Maybe it's not worth it.
And she does not have a lot of money, let's be real.
Yeah, you know what? Go drive north for several hours, then have the baby. Does Canada,
this is something...
Does Canada have birth citizenship?
I believe so. It's something that's so funny, too. I have completely forgotten to mention this. This is years ago. So... Remember how, the original baby daddy was some guy who, made paintings, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's who it was. And in their apartment, you could see a bunch of paintings that he presumably painted, right? Mm-hmm. Then later, when they introduced Widmore, one of his paintings is in Widmore's place. And so people were speculating, oh my god, did he actually make it as a painter if Widmore is buying his credit? And then they had to be no, it's just that... our set designer, he painted them, and he likes to just put his stuff in our show. It's fine.
Damn, sucks for that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Anyway, so
okay?
Desmond...
I'm still not over. You know the scene where he broke up with Claire. I'm still not over how he like brought home groceries. He like brought home beers and then left. Like, why would he bring home beers, put them in the fridge, and
Okay,
then
can we
leave her?
can we move on?
The
Can we move
pregnant,
on?
the pregnant lady isn't going to drink beers.
But can we move on from that? Like,
I can never move on from that. Anyway, Desmond is at the courthouse, and Charlie just walks into traffic. And no, it's not that he was trying to kill himself so much as he was okay.
not the courthouse. He was at the jail.
Okay,
like,
jail. Say, whatever. I feel like some of those. Never mind. He has zero self-preservation and would be fine with it if he died because he wants to see love again.
Yeah, because when he was dying, it appears that he got some sort of vision of Claire from like the other world or something.
I guess
like,
this is just a thing that can happen. Like, I don't think there's an explanation for this. It is just a thing that can happen.
Yeah. And he offers Charlie the choice to come with, and he says, there's always a choice. And then Charlie crashes the car.
Yeah.
And as he's drowning in that car, Desmond gets the vision of the island.
He bullied Desmond for having no love, no bitches, and then it's just like, he will show you, and he sees the not Penny's boat thing.
Yeah.
So then, that is how that episode ends. Then we are on episode 98.
Yes, Epilogue 2. So now Desmond's in the hospital, and the doctor is asking, are you seeing any hallucinations? To which the answer is, well, yes, but also no.
Yep. Anyway, so they're putting him in an MRI, and this is my first idea of like... Well, actually, no, at first, the car crashed into the water. I thought, is the other Desmond going to wake up here? And then I think MRI, a lot of electromagnetism going around him. Is this where suddenly the other Desmond shows up? And I think something happened, like electromagnetism clearly does something to him, so it helps him remember a bit more, but it's not the other Desmond showing up.
What I will say here is that the episode, and you were kind of cluing into this, actually, which is why I tried to divert you. Because at one point you had messaged me saying, I'm seeing a lot of, like, opening credits recently.
Yes.
And one of them is because... the Desmond episode, what happens is Desmond, he gets fried by that huge electromagnetic thing, right? In that episode, you remember that episode? And then what happens is the rest of that episode is just all, like, of Desmond's journey here, including the MRI and everything. And then he kind of pops back.
So it's not as explicit of a thing as, like... It's not as explicit of a thing as, like, when he gets sent back and forth between times. It's just, like, a little part of his mind is...
It's meant to be like some part. That's why he was so chill after it. Some part of his mind was able to see this world.
Some part of his mind was here, and because of that, those memories ended up in this Desmond's mind. And then when he gets back, this Desmond still has those. And
that's why he's saying to Jack, he's like, "I saw us. We were on the plane. It never crashed."
Yeah. So he knows. So he didn't like directly experience this world like when he jumped between times, but he got the gist.
Yeah. And so anyway, they're doing the MRI, and they give him a button to push, and they say, don't press it, or we have to do it all again from the beginning. Like, as in, just like with the hatch, once you press it, it just resets, and you have to do it all again. I just love it. And of course, the MRI makes sounds like the hatch sounds.
I just think, imagine, it sounds like this is not how the episodes are cut, but imagine just like a thing where like one scene is him being in the middle of the electromagnetism thing on the island, and the next scene is him being in this MRI, which is an electromagnetism machine. I just think that'd be funny.
Yeah. So he does see a vision of Penny, and he's like, oh my god, Charlie's right, but I still have to go get Charlie, so I have to go find him. Yeah, he bumps into Jack as he's doing it.
Yep, and he's like, you think like, is he gonna get Jack's help? But then no, it's like Jack does nothing for him, he just, because he sees Charlie, and they have a chase scene.
Yeah. And so he's not able to get Charlie, and,
Charlie,
Whitmore
he talks to Charlie and...
is like, you know what, you can go tell my wife that he won't be showing up.
It's not that he can't get Charlie, it's like Charlie's like, you can tell something matters more than this, and Desmond realizes he's right.
Yep. Then we see that Helen says she's tired of wedding planning and be like, why don't we just elope? Which I'm all for. I'm pro-elope.
Yeah, and then she tells him, like, you randomly ran into a spinal surgeon, Destiny, and you know what? Even though we're in a timeline where Locke doesn't believe in destiny, that basically is destiny.
Yeah.
Like, we can safely say that's not a coincidence.
True. Then we have Desmond, he's about to go meet Eloise, and Minkowski warns him. He's like, oh, be careful with the boss's wife.
And then Eloise is just, like, a version of her that just, like, yeah, I can just be a rich lady.
Yeah, who's complaining about cutlery setup.
Yep. Oh, so we're full
high and then he shows up and he's like, I can't get, the main performer. And she just goes, oh, that's fine. Like, whatever.
Who cares?
And then she says, whatever happened, happened.
Yeah, and then she's still from the island. Like, she's still... Wouldn't she still remember having shot Daniel?
Would she?
That was before the nuke.
But if Daniel never goes to the island, how can he travel back in time to be shot?
Because I assumed we were going off branching timeline rules, but I guess we're going off of don't worry about it timeline rules.
Anyway, so Desmond's about to leave, but then he hears Penny's name on the guest list.
Yeah, and he's like, hey, who's that? And they're like, and Eloise is like, no, you cannot. And she starts talking like, this is a problem, this is a violation, stop looking for it. And it's like, is she talking about how it's private information and unprofessional, or is she talking about Magic Island fate stuff?
Well, you could read it both ways, because you can see it of, like, she doesn't, especially considering it's basically her husband's love child, like, she wouldn't really want that to be brought up. But also, it's like, the way she's talking about it sounds like magic stuff.
Yeah, and I kind of expect we might not even get any more of Eloise. I think that might be it, and it might just be, we're not going to get it confirmed either way, what she meant.
Yeah, so then Desmond, he starts talking to Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel Widmore,
and
not
Daniel also
Faraday.
starts talking about love at first sight and everything.
Yeah, because he's getting this too. He was in the museum and he saw Charlotte, and he woke up and he wrote something, and he doesn't know what it is, so he goes to a friend, and they say it's quantum mechanics. All I can say is those diagrams looked closer to special relativity to me.
You're the expert.
I'm not really an expert. Anyway,
well, on this podcast you are.
Daniel explains they release a ton of energy, timeline branches off. I feel like he is basically just having a shockingly accurate guess here. I feel like he wouldn't really know. I feel like there are a lot of big assumptions in deducing that, but he is right.
Right, yeah. And Desmond's like, so you want to set off a hydrogen bomb? And he's like, no, I think I already did.
Yeah.
Like,
so then it's like, we don't even know if Penny's real, and she's like, she's my sister, man.
Yeah. So then we have the police showing up in the hospital to question Claire, but she doesn't give up Kate.
Yeah.
Even though they could have just easily looked in the bathroom, but they did not.
And then Kate asks, Claire, I think, asks Kate what she did, and Kate is just like, would you believe me if I said I was innocent? And Claire says yes, which is a weird thing to say to someone who pointed a gun at you and took you hostage in a car.
Yeah.
Anyway, Claire also...
and then Kate's like, oh, you should keep the baby.
Yeah,
it's like, take advice from the stranger.
Yeah, it was earlier, but she magically knew the name Aaron.
Well, that's what happened on the island, too. She just suddenly called him Aaron and was like, oh, I guess that's what your name is.
Maybe it has nothing to do with Magic Island stuff. It just literally subconsciously...
Yeah, because that happened on the island, too. She just suddenly thought of it.
Subconsciously, it's a name she likes.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sun and Jin are still there, and I'm wondering how long it's been, because we saw Jack already back at work, although I guess Jack is a workaholic, so if the funeral's cancelled, he would just have nowhere else to go but work.
We saw Jack at work?
We saw him at a hospital.
Oh.
Desmond saw him.
Right, yeah.
I think the timeline's a little... I'm not worried about it.
To be fair, this is all happening in one day.
Yeah.
Like...
I mean, it's not
to be
that
fair, though,
weird.
I don't expect getting cleared through customs with $25,000 of
I'm not saying
undeclared money to be fast.
I'm just saying, you know what? Jack gets off a plane, meant to go to his funeral, but it's canceled. He just ends up going back to work. It's not that hard to believe that Jack would do that.
Yeah, true.
Anyway,
so they got through customs, but then the money was confiscated because
so it was supposed to be a bribe,
rules.
and this whole plotline, I'm just thinking, like, you literally are in organized crime, so I feel like you kind of do have to go to the meeting and apologize. I just feel like this seems like the kind of thing where you're going to get someone with a gun sent after you for not showing up. You are in organized crime. I feel like you should take it.
Yeah, but the point is that like they had already missed the appointment by the time
you
they were able
gotta
to get
like
through
find
customs.
a way to address it. You know, like the situation's only going to get worse if you keep ignoring it.
True. Then Desmond he meets Penny running steps, and he passes out as soon as they shake hands, and that's when Desmond woke up back on the island world.
Yeah, but
and then he just immediately asks her out, and because he's handsome, she says
they
yes.
hit it off, and he's nice. I wonder if she knows that he's like works for her dad, because that is kind of weird.
I don't think she does.
Like, I feel like if that...
Like, I don't know how she would have access to that
I
information.
feel like, you know, if that comes up, she'd be like, huh, who the hell are you? Why were you showing up to me? Are you stalking me? But it's just like, maybe she also just has, like, vague Magic Island stuff that's making her kind of know him. Like, they hit it off just very well, very quickly.
Right. So then he asks Minkowski, he's like, get me the manifest for the plane I was on. I have to go show them something.
So we don't know what's going to happen, but I don't know what he's going to do with it, but I mean, I'm looking forward to that next time. And
right.
so...
so then Jin and Sun, they get separate rooms at the hotel.
And then, meanwhile, we cut to Sawyer is having sex, pulling off his good old scam, and we get the great sequence of just like, I secretly outplanned you all along. He does the scam, then she pulls out a gun because she's married to a con man. She knows the technique, and she's like, "You think I'm stupid?" Then he's like, "Hey, I'm a cop. This is surrounded by cops." And she's like, "Oh, if there are cops here, why is no one saving you? You suck." And then he says the code word, and there actually are fucking cops.
And the code word was LaFleur, of course.
Yeah, of course. And, you know, Miles works for him. Or they're partners.
They're their partners.
With their partner. I was thinking LaFleur. I was thinking when he was LaFleur, Miles did work for him. Like,
oh, exactly, right? Yeah, it's bringing that back.
Yep. It's like... So, when did he become a cop? Like, I feel like... Was he a scammer? Like, let's say he considered becoming a scammer, and then he just became a cop? Or did he do a scam for a while, and then he maybe did that thing in prison where he helped the warden, and then he kind of transitioned that into helping law enforcement more until he could become a cop?
Well, in the original timeline, he says he dropped out of 9th grade, so I imagine that's when he started scamming. So I imagine he just didn't do that.
Well, I just think,
timeline?
That totally makes sense, but I also just kind of like it if he's one of those, like... I mean, you ever seen the movie Catch Me If You Can?
Yeah.
You know...
Completely fake movie, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I know. He totally... Like, the book that inspired the movie...
The actual con is that he got people to believe that's a real-life story.
He totally bullshitted it. Like...
Which I have to give him props for that. That's amazing.
And it's a good movie either way, but just, like, that kind of story where you're the scammer and then you end up becoming one of the guys who catches scammers. I just think it's cute if he ends up... If he's one of those in this timeline.
Yeah. Then we have Jin and Sun, who they kind of had like a flirty argument about the button thing of like, oh, should I button this button up now?
First of all, Jin kind of implies all she does is go shopping, and she is just like, "Oh, that's all you think of me." And I have seen her girl bossing, so she is capable.
But I don't think I don't think she has gone through enough to be girl bossing
it's
yet.
in her, you know. And then she just goes like, "Oh, you want me to button up? How about this, huh?" She just completely seduces him.
Well, yeah, it's clear this is something they've like done before, like it's something similar to it, you know.
Playful. He is not as much of a dick in this timeline.
Yeah. And then we get Saeed's brother being like, "Oh, yo, I'm in trouble with loan sharks."
Yeah. And
yeah, can you just go kill them for me, Saeed?
All I'm thinking during this is like, not in this timeline. Don't do this to Saeed. Don't make him do it again. And he says no, and I'm happy.
And then his brother's in the hospital.
Yep. He gets attacked, and then, you know, all I want to say
Nadia pleads with him. She's like, don't do anything violent, just go take care of the kids.
I'm disappointed that all Nadia is here is, like, the love interest, and, like, oh, she's the woman begging him to not, like, be violent. Just because Nadia is hardcore. Nadia resisted torture and refused to talk. Like...
Well, she doesn't have the torture scars that she does from last time, so I don't think she was tortured in this timeline. She doesn't have the scars.
That's very different, then. I guess that.
Yeah, so I don't think Saeed tortured
maybe
her.
Maybe that's why he's closer to her and isn't like still looking for her in this timeline. Just like, I guess.
Yeah.
Well.
Anyway, then we see Locke at work at the box company, and Randy being an asshole.
Randy is just like, yeah. So you didn't go to the conference. You're fired, and.
Which, to be fair, that's a fair thing to fire someone for.
Oh yeah, it kind of is. But then we get he bitches at Hurley for blocking his space, and Hurley's just like, yeah, I own the company, and it's like, yes, Randy is a total douche.
Yeah, so he's like, here, I own this temp agency. Just go there, you'll be taken care of.
Yep. And then we get Sawyer calling an Anthony Cooper. He's saying, we discovered some unclaimed property, were you in Alep or somewhere in 1976? Which I think he's calling every Anthony Cooper to kind of find,
He's still trying to get revenge, but through the legal method instead of the underworld.
He's trying to, when he calls the right one, they're going to say yes because they want their unclaimed property. And it's like, oh, so you were in the area at the time. And...
Right.
Yeah.
And it turns out he lied to Miles about the trip. He said he went to Fort Lauderdale.
Because, did he go and shoot the guy in this timeline?
I don't... Considering he's still looking for Anthony Cooper, I don't think so.
Well, he knows that the guy is the wrong one.
But also, he works with the law. If he had the proof, he would probably just send it to the authorities. I don't...
Really?
I don't know if...
I don't know. I got, hardcore Maverick cop vibes here where, he works with the legal system, but if he finds that one guy, he'll take it into his own hands.
Yeah,
I guess it's just, how different of a person is he,
But consider that he's not calling for Sawyer. He's calling for Anthony Cooper. He knows the real name.
Oh, yeah.
So he couldn't have been fooled like he was last time.
Yeah, but then how...
I think he was just following up on a lead that had nothing.
So he already found... So his regular legal system leads led him to the name Anthony Cooper.
Probably.
Yeah. And he was looking on it, and he went for a lead, and it didn't work. All right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway...
And then Miles was like, oh, you have a date with this girl, Charlotte, by the way.
I knew it was Charlotte because... Said the girl...
Obviously.
His dad worked... Because we know she works at a museum because Daniel mentioned it. And then he said his dad works with her where we have the Dharma Initiative connection that his dad was at Dharma and Charlotte's parents were at Dharma.
Yeah. Anyway, so then Locke is at the temp agency, and the first person he speaks to at the temp agency, did you recognize her? It was the fake psychic girl that Hurley met once in the original timeline.
Oh.
Yeah, the one that his dad paid
Hurley,
$1,000
got
to.
her a job.
Yeah.
Huh.
And then Locke asks for her supervisor because she's asking dumbass questions.
Yeah, and it's Rose. And we never knew Rose's job, did we?
I don't believe we ever found out, no.
Always been where she worked.
Yeah.
And he wants the construction job, and she's like, you can't do that. And he's like, what do you know about realistic? And she pulls the cancer card.
Yeah.
But she is right. In the end...
Look, yeah, he cannot work a construction job. That's just not... It's just not possible where he is. And like she says, she's like, my boss told me to make sure. It's like, so if you want construction, I'll give you construction, but the next day, you're going to be back here.
And then we get Nadia comes home, and it looks like Saeed didn't go do anything bad, unless he just did it really fast and sneakily. Didn't do anything bad.
Nope.
He just came home, took care of the kids, which is great.
And then she's like, why didn't you want to be with me? And he's like, I don't deserve you. And it's like, well, you were a torturer, so...
Yeah, I get it. But, if he didn't torture her, then the thing is, I just want him to find someone, and apparently the one he should find does not exist in this timeline, or is still in Australia.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Sawyer sees Charlotte, and let's be real, I think they have a lot of chemistry, which I didn't expect.
I don't think they ever interacted in the original timeline. I can't remember a single interaction.
They just have a surprising amount of chemistry, and it feels wrong because she should be with Daniel, and it's like...
Yeah, and he should be with Juliet.
So the fact that it... Oh yeah, are we going to see Juliet?
Well, she was currently a main character on a different show, but,
I think we should see
she was on V.
I think we should see her. Well, it's it feels wrong, and it's because... They have a surprising amount of chemistry where it's if these scenes existed in a vacuum, I would be like, oh, that's so annoying and such a shame that it doesn't work out because he gets mad at her. But then because I know that this is wrong, I'm just like, yeah, no, we had to put a stop to that.
Right, yeah. It's really weird. She's like, oh, do you have a shirt? And he goes, yeah, go check this top right drawer. And she checks the top right drawer, and there's no shirts, but there is a file and stuff. And it's like...
yeah.
And then he gets mad at her. It's like, either you told her the wrong drawer, or, like, something's up. Like,
I mean, I think he even if he messed up, he can't emotionally handle her knowing. Anyone knowing, really.
Yeah, so then Locke, he starts to call Jack, and then it goes through, and he hangs up.
Yep, but he talks to Helen about it, and he starts telling the truth. He lied to Randy. He wanted to do the walkabout. That's why he has knives, which, when she sees he has a case full of knives, and is like, what are these for? Honestly, him wanting to have gone on a walkabout is, like, the best answer she could get.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like she
like what?
I think she was internally very relieved when he explained.
Right, yeah, that's... I don't know why, Matthew, you got me watching 30 Rock now. Yeah. And that reminds me, in season 1, where the main character... she sees that this guy is going to church, like, every single day, and is like, oh, what's up? And then it turned out he was just going to AA meetings. It's like, you know what? Still not great, but it's, like, probably the best option for her at that point.
Yeah.
Like...
Anyway, so he is just, we see, his frustration, which, like I've been saying for this whole episode of our podcast, this could have been super easy fanfic where he just goes get surgery, but we are getting this whole emotional arc of him struggling with it before he might accept that maybe he should go get the surgery, or maybe he's not even going to. I don't know, but he's...
Well, he says, he's like, I don't want you waiting for a miracle, because it's just not going to happen. And she's like, I was never waiting for a miracle. Like,
yeah, she loves him.
And they rip the card, and it's like, it's a nice for both, both accepting yourself for who you are despite your limitations and being still loved for that. Which
still should.
It's always nice to see.
He still should, like, take the opportunity.
Especially because Jackson's free of charge.
Yeah.
Like, I have to imagine that surgery's expensive. If he's saying free of charge...
He said the consult would be free of charge.
Okay, but...
So, honestly, if the consult's
honestly,
free...
I'd take a free... If I was in America, I'd take a free consult.
I think even if he accept... It is fantastic for him to accept himself as he is. You should still take the opportunity. You should absolutely take the free consult. And if the surgery itself still ends up being expensive as fuck, and you have accepted...
Yeah, because what's the worst? You lose an hour of your life?
If the surgery is super expensive and you've accepted yourself as who you are, that's okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I just like seeing Locke and Helen together. It's nice.
Yeah. Anyway, these were just... You know what? I was in a stressed place when I watched these episodes, and honestly, just seeing this pleasant timeline where things are going... there's drama, there's difficulties, but things are going generally well. It was just a really nice thing to get to watch. And I think I vaguely said this last time, but like you said, some people I'm sure hate this part of the show. They're like, what's the point of this fanfic tier stuff? But you know what? It's like, a lot of shows couldn't get away with it.
Oh, you'll see. Some people really hate it.
A lot of shows couldn't get away with it, but with Lost in particular, I'm just like, you know what?
Especially because it was happening in season 6, and people were like, get to the plot already. Like, imagine watching the Temple storyline, but the Temple storyline is also getting interrupted by this.
Well, this would be the good part.
Well, there you go, right?
Yeah, but it's just... I'm enjoying this. It's like... Lost is just a show that has done so many weird things. I mean, they have the whole time travel arc, and like I think that it fits. Or even if it doesn't fit perfectly, it doesn't fit horribly.
Yeah, this was colloquially known as the Flash Sideways when it was airing. Because it was like, it's to a different timeline or whatever. So that's what people called it. But yeah, next time we're going to be covering just episode 99 and episode 100, epilogue 3 and 4. So that will be pretty fun.
Yeah, I definitely I should say what I'm looking forward to for the next one. I think that there's two kinds of things I'm looking forward to here. There's the characters where I don't really have a particular plot I'm looking forward to, so much as I just want to see some resolution with them, where it's like, Jack, I want to see, like, whatever Jack figures out about himself, whatever he comes to terms with, because we haven't gotten a ton of Jack past the beginning of this, or, like, I want to see Jin and Sun's relationship come to a resolution, even though they're in an alright place right now. I just want to see more with them. And then there's the ones where I have specific things I want to see resolve, where I want to see how, if this is supposed to be the fanficky happy ending plotline, how are we going to handle Kate? And secondly, I don't know if Locke... I don't even want to assume Locke will go for the surgery, because it sounds like he won't. But if he were to, then I would want to see that. But I would also just want to see... I feel like we're setting something up with Anthony Cooper. We got to see something to do with Sawyer. I mean, see how he got paralyzed in this timeline. And then, maybe Desmond is going to unite the people on the plane. And maybe there's just also some level of, like... are we going to resolve the Anthony Cooper and Sawyer stuff at the same time as we resolve the Anthony Cooper and Locke stuff? Does the Anthony Cooper and Locke stuff need to be resolved? I don't know.
Well, I mean, you know what? Let me just say this. You're not going to get a resolution to the Sawyer Anthony Cooper stuff in this timeline.
Damn, really?
It's just...
I don't...
I
don't need that super badly because Sawyer is in a stable place. I thought it was setting some...
And we've already seen the conclusion to that in the real timeline.
I don't think that's, huge. I just thought, I don't know. I felt like the little details were maybe building to something because I was wondering,
No, I think they're just little details to be like, oh, remember that?
All right, fair enough. It's not going to kill me that there isn't stuff with that then. But
yeah, the more I'd say at least the really important stuff will all.
Yeah, I mean, we got to see what happens with Kate. Are Jack and Kate gonna get together? We have to see. I
mean, they ended the island stuff. They ended that on a kiss. So who knows what their other life will be like? Yeah. Because we know Desmond. As soon as he saw Penny, he got it. When he saw Claire, he got it immediately.
Jack and Kate have seen each other.
Right, but it wasn't like in a near-death special sort of moment thing. It was just passing each other on the plane. Yeah. And she, stole his pen.
I never forgive people who steal pens.
Oh, then you'll never forgive me. I'm a pen stealer. Okay, yeah, I think that's it then for this episode.
Right.
Unless you have anything else to say? No?
Nope, just it was a good time. Looking forward to watching the rest, finishing off the show.
Yeah, I hope you will join us next time.